Izwe lethu. One settler. Bendifuna ulungisa nje lento yesettler. Program Director, comrades, friends, Professor Senukwani, for the invitation, we thank you. I also want to thank our aunts and uncles from the Khoisan movement. They are part of the family. I am not going to say more because I myself am Khoisan. So those issues of Khoisan, Black African, those are our problems. Some of the Khoi and the San brothers and sisters and uncles and aunts, we are going to drag them to liberation, screaming and creaking. Let me start by adding my voice to the global voices that remembered our brother James Cone, who passed on recently. James Cone taught Steve Biko and the contemporary Black consciousness adherents Black theology, the interpretation of the gospel, so that it becomes a weapon to fight for liberation. James Cone, as we know, taught us that God is black and her love gave us the land and wealth. The white God, on the other hand, dispossessed the children of the black God. Therefore, the original sin is a sin of land theft. That makes all of us who fight for land true believers in the gospel of God. Give me an amen, please. I'm going to do two things with the short time that I have. First is simply to admit the BLF premise that all the land in South Africa belong to black people and it must be returned without conditions. Let me start by also addressing my brothers and sisters from Unisa philosophy department. Most of those who follow Professor Ramose, I saw some of them earlier, and also some of those brothers who and sisters who are from the University of Pretoria, who practice what is called critical legal studies. I don't want us to have a debate. I know the arguments, and BLF accept those arguments around constitutional supremacy. I mean, this is an internal debate, please. Around constitutional supremacy. We know the amendment of the Constitution is not going to be the end and not give us land. But we support this proposition because our people believe in the Constitution. So we must exhaust the constitutional process. BLF are proud constitutional delinquents. We don't accept the South African Constitution and its legitimacy. So I want to settle the matter of the Unisa philosophy people and the critical race studies people. Dr. Mazingos has argued recently that we need what he calls a post-reconquer constitution. I want to respond simply saying, we will not have a post-land conquer constitution as a proposition of discussion. That constitution becomes possible after land reconquest. So we need a revolutionary program, not a discussion around a new constitution. I hope those understand this little intervention. Then, let me deal with my big question. My big question is simply this, that the land expropriation motion passed by Parliament recently is a tactic to delay the amendment of the Constitution. I wish to state categorically here today that there shall be no amendment of the Constitution until next year elections, and most likely not even after the elections. I'm going to give you two important arguments for this. One is a process argument, the other is a conceptual argument. Let me give you the conceptual argument. Let me start with the process arguments. The Constitutional Review Committee, you know the committee, all of us were very happy, by the way, when they said they amended the Constitution, EFF and ANC finally together, wow. We celebrated. I went to drink with some comrades. And then when we looked at the matter critically, we realized the following. One, the Constitutional Review Committee does not amend any law or constitution. It has never done so. Go look at it since it was founded. It is the Constitutional Review Committee, is the committee which the motion says it must go to be undertaken. I have called the Constitutional Review Committee myself personally, and I have been confirmed that there will be public participation by August. There will be recommendations to Parliament at the end of August. There will be no amendment of the Constitution. Let me tell you this. It takes at least 410 days to bring a new bill to Parliament, to introduce it. So, 400 days are going to pass and there will be no new bill to expropriate land. What the motion actually should be called is a roadshow motion. Because those members of Parliament are coming to ask us, do you want us to expropriate land without compensation? And why do you want us to do so? I mean, there's national consensus already that there must be expropriation of land without compensation. Why are they coming back to us to ask us this question? It's because they want to delay the process of amending the Constitution. There was a shorter route already in Parliament, and I was hoping that Comrade Shibambu will be here because, I mean, he's in Parliament, but I'm sure Mr. Godi can attest to this. Already there is, before a parliamentary committee in public works for the expropriation of land. There is that. If they were serious about amending the Constitution, all they needed to do was to bring into line the already existing bill which was rejected by President Zuma, and then say it must now say land expropriation without compensation. End of the story. They didn't do so. They are doing these road shows. So, in terms of process, I'm telling you there is going to be no amendment of the Constitution until elections. What are the ideological and conceptual reasons, which I think are actually as important? Both the sponsor of the motion, EFF, and the seconder, ANC of Ramaphosa, share a common nervousness around the destruction of the colonial agricultural sector, which land expropriation without compensation necessarily will result in. EFF and ANC want land expropriation without land expropriation. So those of you who listen a little bit to arguments of philosophers, I mean, this idea of a revolution without a revolution, you know, or you can have beer without alcohol, right? So here let me give you some of their proposition. Let's start with Ramaphosa. Ramaphosa has been clear. He says, I will only entertain the land issue if the black-owned farms were productive, close quote. Ramaphosa, when he speaks about land expropriation without compensation, he gives with one hand, he takes with the other. So for instance, he'll say, yes, we want land expropriation without compensation, but please, it must not destroy the agricultural sector or affect the economy. So in other words, there is no land expropriation. The ANC policy drafters, now the policy of the 54 conference are out. Listen to what they say. They say land must be prioritized. And then they say, prioritize the redistribution of vacant, unused, underutilized state land, close quote. Vacant, yes, unused. The EFF, I argue, share the same consideration. Let's listen to their president in early 2015 in Paarl, speaking to farmers. Julius Malema says, and I quote, as long as it's productive farms, we don't have to interfere with the production of that piece of land, close quote. He don't go further. He does go further, and I quote him. In the same meeting, he said, in terms of land, which is not used for agricultural purpose, we would be having a problem. All we are saying is that the land must be used. It must not lie idle. Therefore, I'm arguing, BLF is arguing, there's consensus between Ramaphosa and Comrade Malema around which land must be expropriated. But the bottom line is, there must be expropriation of land, but that must be the land white people don't want. South Africa is a semi-arid land. Anyone who says to you, land which is productive must not be taken, he has actually robbed you, because only 20% of South African land is highly productive. And this land, this 20%, provide 80%. This land provides 80% of the agricultural output. It is in high, intense cultivation. So it means white people can keep that land because it is in good use. We as BLF, just like all other revolutionary movements, is clear, we want all the land, all of it. Okay, let me come to us the conclusion. So what must we do? I mean, I've tried to quickly really provide these two considerations, process and conceptual. Why conceptual? So in other words, it means that conceptually there's agreement amongst politicians that land expropriation must not happen. First, if you look at the process. But if you look at the concept, the understanding, the ideological question, it's a colonial construct because it says, yes, take the land, possibly, but do not touch land which white people are using. You know, it's a little bit like if somebody stole your car, right? And now they decided to make business with your car. Now you say, bring back my car. And then they said, but I'm running a business. And then you say, because you're running a business, okay, fine. When the car, you no longer use it for business, I'll come take it back. What must be done? What must be done? What must be done? We say we must challenge Parliament to amend the Constitution before next elections. We must tell them, we must say to EFF and the ANC and those in Parliament, look here, we don't trust you, man. We don't believe that you want to do this thing. But you can convince us. Amend the Constitution before the elections. If you don't do that, we must declare you sellouts. I argue that we must all go to the road shows of Parliament. They're going to be coming around. Let's go there and tell them it's the same thing. If you don't amend this Constitution before next elections, you are sellouts. Let us support the radical economic transformation as a minimum program to unite all black people. You know, the PAC spoke earlier, Azapo spoke, the APC spoke, of course, and the ANC spoke. Azapo, PAC, ANC, the liberation movement of the past, even the energy that comes from them, suggests that we need to do something to help them to come to the party. Okay, please, let me conclude. We must defend all black people who come under attack from AfriForum. That is why we must say, hands off Zuma. We must say, hands off Malema. We must say, hands off Casta. Defending Mngxitama Trust. Comrades, I agree with Dr. Litchfield. When they took our land, there was no amendment of the Constitution, there was no law, there was no parliament. They simply went and took our land. If we want our land back, we get organized. And we go take back the land. We can't wait for parliament. Israel too.